What's up, everyone? All right, so in today's episode, I'm going to give you my watch list for Monday morning and the game plan for the week ahead. So we're coming to the last full week for the month of June. And, if you've been tuning into the recaps, it's been a really good month. But the thing is, every day when I sit down, I just never know what I'm going to get. It could be a really hot day. We get a great catalyst, or it could be a little slower. So on Friday, when I first sat down, we had Wheeler Investment Trust, which is a REIT. That one, ended up making a bit of a move, and I was able to make a little bit of money on it, but it didn't do anything crazy. We had a couple of lower price stocks that were moving. Lucy ended up with 110 million shares of volume, which is really surprising. It's an innovative eyewear company. I mean, eyewear can only get so innovative. But anyways, so this one, ends up going up 45%, then it sort of sells off into the close. So Friday seemed like it was going to be a slow day, especially after the market holiday that we had on Thursday. But then, we did end up getting a couple of decent trades. So I think the moral of the story right now is that there are a lot of traders that are in the market. And as soon as you have something that's starting to show strength and starting to pick up a little bit of momentum and move, there are traders that are really going to be pretty quick to jump on it. The problem is avoiding jumping in stocks that are not going to become obvious. So then that's kind of the question. If you see a stock that's already up 110% and it's the leading gainer, it's certainly obvious, but it might be fair to say that you've missed the beginning of the move. So how can you find a stock that has the potential to become the most obvious stock today before it goes up 110%? And I think that comes down to understanding what I would consider to be my 5 primary pillars of stock selection. Now, I've got my five primary pillars of stock selection, and then there's a number of pillars that I have, or sort of bonus criteria, that increase the potential for a stock. So when I sit down in the morning and I'm pulling up my top gainer scanner, what's the first thing I'm checking? Well, if this was the scan here for Monday morning, just for instance, I would certainly look at the leading percentage of the gains. Having stocks that are up 50 or 100% or higher indicates that there's a lot of strength in the market. Even if I don't want to trade those stocks, it just shows that there's a lot of strength, which means the next stock that starts to pop up will probably get more follow through. If I sit down and the leading gainer is only, I don't know, let's say like 15% or 20%, what that tells me is that the market is dead. There is nothing that's been moving at all. And that's not good. There's not going to be any sort of FOMO, like fear of missing out, because I just missed the last few and I'm going to miss the next one. There's just not a lot of strong sentiment in the market. So the first thing I check is I want to see if there's some stocks that are up quite a bit. Now, when I go through my 5 pillars of stock selection, I'm thinking about the price of the stock, because what I know from my metrics is that I don't do well trading expensive stocks. There are exceptions to that. Obviously, we had the Circle IPO, a couple weeks ago. This one's gone all the way up to like $200 a share. It's definitely made a big move. RGC, this one's higher priced, a bit higher price, has made some big moves. So it does happen from time to time. But generally, when I'm sitting down each morning, if I see a stock that's already at $25, $30 a share, I'm usually going to disregard it. So lower price, below 20 is better. And then you can kind of use the 20-20 rule. Price should be below 20 and float should be below 20. Now, lower on the float is better because that's going to be less supply, which means when we have a surge demand, the price will move faster. So in this current market, some of the stocks that have been making the biggest moves have had floats of less than 5 million shares. Occasionally you'll have one less than 500,000 shares, but that's pretty low. Less than 5 million shares. So, price under 20, float under 20, but lower is better. Should be up. The stock that I'm considering should already be up at least 10% on the day, 15%. But there should also already be stocks that are up quite a bit more, because then that stock that's starting to pop up is going to get more attention. Now, what's going to give it that attention typically is that it's got some type of news catalyst. So we like to see news. And we like to see if the stock is trading on above average volume. Now, I'll do a couple things. So first, for those of you guys that want to spend the next couple weeks trading side by side with me, looking over my shoulder and watching me trade currently on a really nice hot streak, you could do a 2-week trial at Warrior Trading for $20. So it's $20, 2-week trial. And during that trial, you'll not only get to listen to my broadcast, but you'll get to use this software right here. So Day Trade Dash, charts, scanners, news feed. You'll be able to kind of, set it up yourself, make your own template and save it or layout. You can use mine, but you can make your own. You'll be able to listen to my broadcast. You'll be able to go through some of the classes. And I think it'll be time well spent. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm also going to put a link in the description for my 5-pillar of stock selection PDF. So those of you guys maybe don't want to do the trial right now, you don't have time for it, whatever, you can at least download that PDF and you can study the criteria that I use to decide whether or not I should even consider taking a trade on a stock. So we've got the 5 pillars of stock selection, and then we have some of those bonus criteria. So right now, a stock that is a recent reverse split, that makes, if you have a stock that already meets all 5 pillars of stock selection and it's a recent reverse split, it's going to be even stronger. If it meets all 5 pillars and it's a recent IPO or it's a blue sky setup, it's going to be even stronger. If it's also a foreign listed company, Singapore, China, Hong Kong, those tend to have more potential. They can be risky, but they can give us some really nice moves, as we've seen with RGC. If it's in the crypto space, depending on the price of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, then crypto stocks can work as well. And as always, stocks are in the biotech and pharmaceutical sector, when they've got news, are so much stronger. So for instance, you could have a stock that meets all 5 pillars of stock selection, but it's a bank. And to be honest, it's kind of rare that a bank would meet all 5 pillars, but let's just say for the sake of argument, it's a bank. That's typically not going to work. Or it's generally utilities don't work either. However, because the price of energy has gone up so much, we actually have had some momentum in the last week on energy stocks. But typically, that sector wouldn't work very well. So you kind of have to understand really both the anatomy of the type of stocks that can make really big moves and the theme of the current market we're in. What are the types of stocks that are making big moves? And then naturally, if we just had a biotech stock that went up 1,000%, what are traders going to be looking for? The next biotech stock that's going to go up 1,000%. And so the next biotech stock that has even decent news is going to probably get more buying volume, because traders are thinking and hoping it might be the next one. And that can become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that theme will work until, it sort of, kind of stops working, or you end up getting a stock that the company kind of takes advantage of all that buying volume, does a big secondary offering, and then traders get a little nervous about jumping into the next one. So anyway, so my plan for tomorrow, more or less, as always, will be to watch these scanners looking for stocks that really closely meet the criteria of a stock that has the potential to make a big move and fits within the sector or theme that's been working really well right now. However, I always like to check my continuation scanners just to see if there's any stocks from the previous week that show potential. So I'm going to pull up the continuation scanner here. AIM. This one's kind of interesting. Sort of popped up here. It's almost has a look of a reverse split. I just have to double check this because I don't see the split on the chart. But obviously the price has jumped up quite a bit. So Tuesday, resume trading. So immunopharma company, okay. Interesting. So I'm not totally sure about this one. Ultimately, until it gets more volume, it's not tradable. Right now, these last couple days, it just wasn't liquid. So that's not going to work. SRM, this one did end up making a big move on Friday. First daily candle to make a new high. And you got a really nice squeeze on that. And that took place kind of like right at the opening, just around the open. Sort of popped up, dropped down, then it ripped higher. Then it dropped back down. A little choppy, but overall, a pretty decent move. This is worth watching for continuation on Monday. The pivot is going to be the high of this level right here, 1206. I would say this is similar to the KWE stock that I got a trade on, where it had a big move. Then it had this pre-market pivot right around this area, and then we squeezed from that level higher. So SRM, that's the first stock I'm going to put on watch for continuation. TMDE, this one's a little too cheap. I'm going to skip that one. LZMH, a little more expensive and not a lot of volume. These ones, floats too high. KWE needed to hold, I think, over 12 to look better. But if the company puts out news, we could potentially get a couple days of pullback and then maybe a first daily candle to make a new high. So I'd keep it on watch, but probably not for Monday. HOVR, floats too high. INDO, energy. This one doesn't typically trade very nicely. Houston American Energy Company. This one, I think they might have done an offering. Yeah, they did. Probably going to be out of play. RBNE also did an offering, selling off. So that's where it feels like those energy stocks are kind of on the backside. Just checking the energy ETF. Price is kind of flat. USO, United States Oil Fund, price is up a little bit, but yeah. So continuation scanner gave us one idea, SRM. Then we're going to check the after hours top gainer scanner. Link this up with my charts. AGMH. Interesting. Maybe over the high. It's somewhat recent reverse split. A lot of room to the 200. Let me just check the float. I can't quite see it. Oh, 1.8. That's fine. Float's fine. So AGMH is a possibility for continuation into Monday. CDT, I've traded that one before. While the float is pretty low, it tends to be pretty choppy. I doubt it'll work. And the rest of these aren't gapping up enough. Okay, so now we've got AGMH. So we've got two stocks on watch for Monday. And these are side charts. It's not a guarantee that I'll trade it, but it's something I'm going to keep an eye on. Now I'm going to look at the recent IPOs. What am I looking for? Recent reverse splits. I'll check that one as well. And then recent IPO top moving. There it is. Okay, so recent IPO top moving, OFAL, popped up, sold off, pulled back too much. Circle, no. ARO, AIRO. First daily candle to make a new high, but float's a little higher. Some of these I've got to check the filings to see how big the float is. JEM, not bad. Hong Kong company, so over the high of 750 could work. Side chart, just needs volume. And then egg. Interesting. First daily candle to make a new high, maybe, but I'm not sure. All right, so then recent reverse splits, STT. This one's already started to pop up. PX, so I probably missed it. PXLW, this one, maybe. It's holding the 200. That could work. JFBR, it's notoriously choppy. APDN, also a choppy stock. FGEN, maybe with news. Room to the 200. That could work. ONCO, room to the 200. That could work, although it had a couple days with a bit of volume. So when I review this scanner, this is helpful because if I see one of these stocks on the scan, either the high day momentum scanner or the top gainer scanner on Monday morning, then I'm going to be like, oh, that's it. I already know this is a recent reverse split. I better jump on this one, a little bit faster because those have the potential to have that quick swing. But I don't see any that I would be jumping on first thing Monday morning. So at this point, there's not really any. We basically have two stocks as maybes. And then we've got a couple stocks on the reverse split scanner as maybes, the recent IPO scanner as maybes. And then it's going to be really a matter of watching the overall market on Monday morning and seeing where we get momentum, what's leading the way, and if there's a shift in the sector that's hot. What I do know is that the last couple weeks, we've seen some pretty good action on the earlier part of the week. So let's see. So you could see on, where is it? June here. So we had the market holiday on Thursday, but, super solid week last week, slower the second week, but super solid the first week. So, right now in pretty solid shape. Um, and, well, I guess two of the Mondays were really strong and this one was a little slower. So who knows? We'll see. We'll see what the market wants to give us. But, and that's the thing that I'll remind you is you never know how much a stock is going to go up or how much you might end up making, but you can control how much you're willing to risk. So I think about risk first. I ask myself whether or not I have the potential to have a good winner if this works. And as long as the risk to reward potential is solid, then I'll feel comfortable taking that risk, knowing that I'm trading a strategy that's back tested, proven, and that over long periods of time is performing really well. So that's the game plan and watch list for Monday morning and the week ahead. And I encourage you guys to download my 5 pillars of stock selections PDF. And those of you guys that want to start your 2-week trial, there'll be a link in the description to do it. And I think you'll really enjoy it. So with that, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll see you first thing on Monday morning. All right, take it slow. Please, as always, trade in a simulator before putting real money on the line, and I'll see you guys bright and early.